recording, which we'll be able to share with you.
Okay.
And we'll also be on our YouTube channel. But meanwhile, I have to make you a co-host
Okay.
so that you can share your screen.
Okay. Sounds good.
So for those of us on, we apologize for having to move it from last week to this week, but Kathy, our
I was sick.
presenter, was sick, so that was a bit of a problem. I've known Kathy now for what, 10, 12 years, and you were a founding member of the IIT chapter here and a past president and
Right.
all that good stuff. We spent a lot of time working with different business analysts and growing that chapter to one that, well, we now give instructional classes for certification preparation and have students from all over the world, right? I mean, we had Nigeria, we had Europe, Morocco, and
Australia, New Zealand, places like that, where, in some cases, because of the time zones, we just have to let them watch the videos if they can't make it to the, which is fine. As long as they watch the videos, do their homework, they get the credit, they get the, the professional development units and all that kind of stuff.
And there's one student that's finishing up this one at the class starts at midnight for her or something like that. So it's crazy. All right, I'm going to turn off my video and then I'm going to mute myself so that we can let you drive and do what you need to do.
Okay. So I'll share my screen, and of course, as usual, it is a PowerPoint. So, and so let me, come on, put it into slideshow mode. Okay. So can everybody see it? And should I admit John Spalding here? Oh, somebody else did. Good. Okay.
I can see it.
Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and get started. So this is all about the value of business analysis. And so, the state of business analysis today, of course, business analysis is something that organizations didn't even think of 15 years ago, right? Now they do, but some organizations still think they don't need business analysis. And in some cases, they feel they must make a choice between doing business analysis and doing something like product owner analysis. But of course, in reality, both of these can be important for both operational initiatives and capital projects. And business analysts and product owners typically work together on those initiatives and projects. I'm just saying, I just told that one because that's what I'm hearing from some companies where they got, they told everybody that was a business analyst that they had to go and get their product owner analysis certification, or else they had to leave or something like that. It was, and they weren't going to do business analysis anymore, just product owner analysis. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. Anyway, so what actually is business analysis? And that's a good question. And so before we can understand what the value of business and analysis is, we need to understand what it is, what business analysis is, and kind of who does it, right? So per the BA-BOK, which is the business analysis body of knowledge, business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to the stakeholders. So that's kind of brief and it sounds kind of generic, but that is what it is. That's sort of the less than elevator description of it, right? So the need is the problem or the opportunity that the enterprise, organization, department, or whatever is facing and needs to solve or take advantage of if it's an opportunity. And anyone in an enterprise who performs tasks or techniques that are documented in the BA-BOK is doing business analysis, no matter what their job title or role is. And therefore, that person is an untitled business analyst if they don't have the title of business analyst, but they're still doing business analysis work. So I've done a lot of work as an untitled business analyst in my career, usually as a program manager, project manager, IT director, or functional analyst. And I'm sure most of you have as well. And in fact, because of that, the amount of projects that I had worked on, whereas I realized that I had been doing tasks, that were actual business analysis tasks and using techniques and things like that. It was very easy for me to put together the 7,500 hours to go and get my CBAP. Anyway, so I've worked with colleagues whose titles were tech lead or infrastructure analyst or enterprise system administrator or developer, and they all did business analysis tasks. And, so that's interesting, right? And then business analysis can be done within the context of a project or as an operational initiative. So it doesn't have to be something that's, capital. It's something that's new. It's only done once, that kind of thing. It can also be operational. However, since most of my business analysis experience has been with projects, we'll talk mostly about that because I can't tell you a whole lot about operational initiatives. So what happens if you don't do business analysis? In ongoing research studies about projects and initiatives, time after time, the results show that one of the main reasons that projects fail is because the real need wasn't uncovered, and thus the requirements that were documented were not the right requirements. So the requirement per the BA Bach is considered to be defined as being a usable representation of the need. So that's basically what it is. So sometimes, even if the need was uncovered, the requirements were either not elicited or they were elicited but weren't confirmed to make sure that they really were what the shareholders wanted and needed. And thus the requirements did not align with the need or the goals and objectives of the organization. Or else sometimes the requirements elicitation and confirmation were skipped and solutioning began without those. And that, I'm sure you've all been in a situation before where a stakeholder has come to you and said, we need a new whatever it is, and they're already solutioning it. We've got this problem, so we need this. This is exactly what we need for it. So please, implement it. And that's not their fault, but sometimes you have to dig deeper, right? So elicitation and collaboration, that's one of the knowledge areas in the business analysis body of knowledge. And a big part of business analysis is collaborating with the stakeholders and eliciting requirements from them. And it can be very difficult sometimes to get the real requirements. They used to call it gathering requirements, which I heard someone say was like they thought that you were just picking them like flowers out of a meadow, and that's not really what happens. It's sometimes it can be like pulling teeth, right? So anyway, it can be very difficult. So this is one of the reasons why we need business analysis, because it gives us a framework of tasks that we can make sure we perform in order to understand the need and the requirements. And it also gives us the techniques to perform those tasks that best fit whatever situation we may encounter, so that it can make it easier for us to to do the tasks, to elicit the requirements, and and to plan the requirements in this elicitation, and then actually conduct it, and then work to confirm it. So then what that means is that if we do that, then we end up performing those tasks more effectively than we would have without using those techniques. And therefore we can get to the understanding phase of the needs and the requirements in a more effective and efficient manner, which is kind of what we want, right? Or very much what we want. So sometimes a business analyst will recommend a solution or not recommend it. I've had some situations where the project sponsor or a particular functional department had a need and thought a particular solution might handle the need. Okay, so, maybe it will, maybe it won't, right? Yeah. So in those cases, I would typically get a relatively small amount of funds approved to do an analysis only project to find out what the project that they want to do, what it would cost, and what the benefits might be. And sometimes the analysis showed that we should do the change. And in that case, we can proceed with confidence, knowing that that the solution that they had thought they wanted would probably be the correct one, because I'd done some analysis with them. They'd done some analysis too. And, we'd figured out what the requirements were, and, done a little bit of investigation into that solution as well to see if it would actually fulfill those requirements. Other times the analysis showed that it wasn't going to work, and so we didn't do it. And the nice thing was that we saved money by not doing it and having it come out all crappy, right? and not valuable. So both of these results are positive outcomes, which show the benefits of business analysis, I would say. Because, sometimes it's just as important to not do stuff as to do it. So as an example, I worked for an organization for a while that used Oracle e-Business Suite. Well, I worked there for about 13 or 14 years, and they used Oracle e-Business. I put in a version of Oracle e-Business Suite the first year, and then we, upgraded it many times. So we used Oracle e-Business Suite. So this was before NetSuite. And the accounting department was looking for ways to increase revenue and cash flow, and also, I think, to reduce days of receivables. So the two ways they were thinking about that were, one, give the existing business to business customers. So those were the customers that were retailers that bought our products and then sold them to the end customers. So give those existing B2B customers more ways to pay. Another one was to give the existing business to business customers rebates if they reached certain annual purchasing levels. So an internal business to business and EDI subject matter expert who regularly sent surveys to the business to business customers had found that the customers were very open to both the rebate idea and the more ways to pay idea. So the customers like that, both of them. So I wrote a business case to do a brief analysis project to investigate two possible technology solutions. The first one was implementing a rebate module, which we already own because it was part of Oracle e-Business Suite, but we weren't using, and or to implement telecheck, which we would get from a different vendor. So as you can figure, I kind of went into it thinking, we're probably just going to use the module that we already have. That's probably going to be the easiest thing to do and the least expensive, and it'll work great, probably, So, and at first, that's what all of us thought. We thought using the rebate module would be simplest. However, after reviewing the module to understand it better, and after doing interviews with members of the accounting department and the outside sales team, and I had some consultants helping me with that. And that was part of the reason why I had to have a little bit of money for it. And the outside sales team, those were the sales reps that sold all over the country. They didn't necessarily, they didn't work at the corporate office. So anyway, so after doing interviews with, as I say, the accounting department and a number of members of that sales team, we realized, first of all, that extra process of steps were going to be necessary for those stakeholders, especially for the accounting department. They were going to have to really go the extra mile in order to be able to give the rebates. And they weren't really thrilled about that after they found out what it was going to take. And then also the outside sales team, who was also going to need to do some extra steps, a lot of the members were convinced that the rebates would lower their commissions, because they felt like if we gave rebates to, customers, if they purchase certain amounts, then their net amount would be lower than it ought to be. And the sales team who got commissions based on a percentage of the revenues that, and the sales that they made, they figured they would have lower commissions. And it was one of those things where I couldn't assure them that that wouldn't happen, and I went and talked to sales VP and as well as a financial VP, and asked them, and they said, I don't know, it might, and so I couldn't get any kind of a, no, that will definitely not happen. So that meant that the outside sales team was not going to be thrilled about it. and considering that they were the main bringers of revenue, I didn't want to implement anything that would upset them. I really didn't. And, because I would want them to always do their best and not decide to leave and go somewhere else, So anyway, so at that point, we realized that we had what they would call an enterprise limitation to that particular, to that rebates module solution that was going to prevent it from performing the way that it ought to. So we realized that we were just not ready to implement rebates, that maybe we could go look at it at some point in the future again. So based on that, the results that we got from the interviews and surveys, I wrote another business case to appropriate funds for only the telecheck implementation. And it turned out that was really easy and inexpensive to implement. And it lowered our days of receivables by a significant amount. And our business to business customers loved it. And our accounting department loved it. And, the sales team didn't care. They were just happy that we didn't do the rebates. So everybody was pretty happy about it. And as I say, it was really easy, not expensive at all, fairly cheap, and, very quick to do. So anyway, but we were very glad that we spent the time doing the analysis. It didn't take very long. And, I was really happy. So then a lot of times, if you've got a product owner, you're doing Agile, right? A lot of times, if you've got a product owner or a Scrum Master or something, you're doing an Agile project. And if you're doing Agile, you still need business analysis, even though somebody might think they don't. But in every Agile project that I've worked on, we've done business analysis. We still collaborated with stakeholders, of course, as one does in business analysis. While we didn't create anything that could remotely be called a requirements document, a business requirements document or anything like that, or, a technical requirements document, we still elicited requirements, but we documented them as user stories, that type of thing. And so the whole thing about user stories, as I'm sure everybody in here knows, is that they're all about atomic pieces of functionality, right? Very small. And so it's a lot easier for your shareholders to understand and make the decision of whether that user story is correct or not than it is if they have, a 20-page requirements document that they have to read. And one of the reasons that we started doing Agile stuff was because I had done an implementation of a human resources module in AX. And one of the people in the HR department said, yeah, I know I signed off on that requirements document, but you didn't really expect me to read it, did you? And I was going, well, I kind of did, but now I see I was wrong. Anyway, so we would document the requirements as user stories. And then, and this was with the HR department, and we were doing another project with them, not the HR module, but another project that they needed. And so what we did was had all these little user stories, and then we had frequent reviews of the various small pieces of functionality with the stakeholders. I set up a bunch of chairs in my office and had a projector screen, and then the development team who were not co-located with us, they were in another city. They basically projected and showed what the functionality was, and then we got immediate early feedback from the stakeholders. It was really great because we got the no's very quickly, and then we could fix them, and it didn't cause us any problems. It was a lot better than getting the no, when you're doing user acceptance testing or something like that. So yeah, so then we either made changes if we got feedback that was negative, or we went forward with what we had. And so it made getting the sign off really easy. And so anyway, user stories are a technique in the business analysis body of knowledge that we use. And these reviews are also a technique in the business analysis body of knowledge that are really good to do. So, and they didn't take that long. We didn't take too much time of our stakeholders, and they were way more engaged with the project than I think they would have been if we hadn't done those. Anyway. And so in short, that particular project was done very quickly, and it was very successful. It was basically what it was, is it was a performance review system that we had done on SharePoint, using basically the default, the workflows and that kind of stuff. It was really very nice, and it was very easy to use, and nobody had to be trained on it. It was just a really good project. And part of that, the main reason for that was because the stakeholders were so engaged, anyway. So I wanted to also talk about strategy analysis, because that is another knowledge area in the business analysis body of knowledge, and it's very important. So a big part of affecting change is strategy analysis. And it's important to analyze the current state, which is one of the tasks in that strategy analysis knowledge area, and then determine what the future state should be. So as an example, in many of my jobs, my positions, I would ask the various executives who I viewed as my internal customers to send me their PowerPoints that contain their goals and objectives for their performance evaluations for the coming year. And oddly enough, they didn't mind me asking those. And they, especially after the first time I did it, and then, one of them talked about it to their colleagues, and said, if she asks you for the PowerPoint, send it to her, But I explained why I wanted them. So the whole idea was, I wanted to come up with a technology solution that would help them achieve their goals and objectives for that coming year. And so they would send me the documents, and I'd review with them what was the current state of their particular department or division. And then we would discuss their needs in terms of their goals and objectives. And I would usually, I would meet with them after I had read the entire PowerPoint, and I had formulated questions and things like that, just so that I could understand the goals and objectives better and that sort of thing. And then we would talk about what they would like the state of their division or department to look like in the future state, which means, what did these goals and objectives really mean? How would they be measured? That kind of thing. So then from those discussions, I'd have an idea of their need and requirements, and I'd confirm those with them, because, I just elicited requirements, got to confirm them. So then once I confirmed the requirements, then the next step would be to come up with some technology solutions that might help deliver the requirements and solve the need. And I usually did that because at that time, in this particular job, I was a senior program manager, and there were two other ones in the IT department. And so we all three reported to the CIO. And so, and I was in, so my internal customers were like legal, all of the finance type departments like tax, accounting, global financial reporting, and, the investor relations, internal audit, stuff like that. And then another one of them had sales, marketing, which meant the kind of the e-commerce plus the outside sales, and then the people that took orders that worked that worked internally in the building, and that kind of stuff. And then the other one was it was all about operations, and that particular senior program manager was in charge of things like manufacturing, what else? Manufacturing, customer service, essentially purchasing, that type of stuff, supply chain management, that kind of thing. So anyway, so I would brainstorm with them about some technology solutions. And then I'd go and talk to whoever my internal customer is that I was working with at the time, and I'd brainstorm with them. I'd come with several possible technology solutions that I had gotten with my colleagues, and then I would work with them to come up with some others. And so once we did that, then once we kind of had a list, then I would move on to writing a business case, which is a technique that's documented in the business analysis body of knowledge, on the various options for the various solution options, and recommend one of them in that business case. And then basically the sponsor, who was that executive usually, would then approve it, and then we would both go to a meeting of various other executives that all had to vote or whatever to spend that amount of money, because it was usually more money than one executive could just approve all by themselves, and sometimes it was a smaller amount, but a lot of times it was a larger amount. And so we'd go there and get it approved, and then we would appropriate that money to implement the future state. And I found that this was a very successful way to do projects, and it made sure that the requirements of the solution aligned to the actual goals and objectives of the business, which was good. And of course, what the sponsors typically liked about it was that it helped ensure that they got their bonus that year, right? Because they met or exceeded their objectives. So anyway, and it was a lot better than doing what a previous CIO that I'd had told me to do. He said, we don't need to know about the company's strategic plan or the executive's performance objectives. We're IT. We don't need to know about this stuff. We just need to wait for the business to tell us what to do, which, isn't what you want to do, right? You don't want to wait for them to tell you what to do. They want you to come and tell them how you can help them, right? They don't want to have to tell you what to do. So anyway, but that was, as I say, that was just what a particular CIO had said. Anyway, so if we can move on here. Does anybody have any questions or comments to make? Because maybe I haven't defined something correctly.
No, Kathy, you talked a lot about projects, and in the supply chain world, we have them as well, right?
Right.
Thinking about setting up a distribution network, or
Mhm.
moving our warehouses, or things of that nature.
Yeah.
Those are all business analysis that eventually get us to someplace. Another area is in procurement, where we may have to
Mhm.
decide, are we going to go and try to create a major partnership, or a
Mhm.
purchasing agreement, or a long-term agreement? And some of those are operational, but some of them are project related as well. So frankly, in supply chain, we use a lot of business analysis. We're just not
Right.
called business analysts, but it's something that people do on a day-to-day basis.
Right. You're right. And so, that doesn't surprise me at all. And, yeah. And yeah, a lot of people are doing business analysis and they don't sort of get credit for it. Right. But that's okay. And I mean, well, maybe it's not okay. I don't know. But I mean, for me, it was okay. But yeah. And as I say, most of mine were projects, but yeah, there's lots of operational initiatives. And I did a few times work for companies where we had to, they opened warehouses, and we had to, part of the project of opening the warehouse was to put in warehouse management systems in there. And so that, once again, was an exercise in business analysis, right? As well as project management. And there was a lot of training and that kind of thing too. But anyway, so, and I'm sure, like I said, that all of you all have experiences like what Eric has just talked about. So anyway, another one of the knowledge areas in the business analysis body of knowledge is called solution evaluation. And so basically the point of solution evaluation is that existing solutions need to be evaluated in order to determine if they should be improved or upgraded or replaced or retired or something like that. So you can do solution evaluation on a solution that you've just implemented, or one that's been there for a while, that kind of thing, or even one that hasn't actually been implemented yet. You can do it sort of, the earliest you can do solution evaluation is once you have a prototype, or or even after that, if you have a pilot version, you can do solution evaluation. And so what you want to find out is the solution, if it's a new solution, is it actually going to provide the value that that you have decided it needs to provide, which we'll call the potential value? Is the actual value going to be equal to the potential value? And then if it's a solution that's been around for a while, you need to measure what value it's still providing, that kind of thing. And can you upgrade it? Or do you need to retire it? Can you replace it with something else? And sometimes the current solution has pain points, because it could be that, like I said, not necessarily providing the value, or it's imposed some kind of a process on the people that use it to the point that it makes their work more difficult, possibly. And so when you find out about something like that, you need to analyze those pain points, and then have have some options to fix them that you can then analyze and make a recommendation. So so once again, that's more analysis, more business analysis. And sometimes you'll find that you're keeping, or someone is keeping, an old solution that has reached the end of its lifespan and is no longer providing value. I had that situation with a manufacturing plant where they wanted to keep the old solution, but what happened to them was not that it really had pain. Well, the pain point was that their hardware got old and started breaking down, and eventually the antique hardware dealers didn't have the correct parts anymore. And so the problem was, that if they were going to get new hardware, unless they did a virtual, unless they built a virtual machine on the new hardware so that they could still have the old operating system and the old database management system and the old application, which that's a little bit more complicated too, having to use a virtual machine. They had to, it meant that they had to They had to upgrade. They had to put in, they had to put in an upgraded system that was a newer version, that kind of thing. And oftentimes, sometimes they keep an old solution because of the sunk cost, the cost that they've already spent on it. And so it's, that's why they tell you to ignore sunk costs, because you can't do anything about them. So they're kind of irrelevant, and you shouldn't be making any decisions based on sunk costs. But anyway, as I say, and with this one particular manufacturing plant, part of the reason that they didn't want to upgrade was because they thought it would be too expensive. And it's like, okay, it is going to be expensive. But, it's having your servers go down. I don't know if that could actually be more expensive if your servers go down and your plant is shut down because you can't, because so much of the processes are automated. That could be really expensive anyway, but they ended up upgrading it and it was fine anyway. So, but business analysis can help to determine when the stage that a solution has reached the end of its lifespan has been reached. And then what are some of the options that you have to do about it? So they can recommend what to do about it. So it's once again, that's an important value of business analysis as well. So I'm actually almost at the end of my presentation here, because I'm doing the summary now. Is that okay? Am I on a decent timeline?
Absolutely.
Okay. So in summary, organizations need business analysis in order to find out the needs and to determine what are the requirements that can satisfy those needs, and to recommend a solution and help implement it, and to save money by not embarking on changes or solution implementations that won't provide value to the organization. Business analysis can help the organization take leaps forward via effective technology solutions that provide value. And sometimes it's a very high value, And then also, while it's okay for the project manager or the scrum manager or the lead developer to do the business analysis tasks in addition to their other duties, it can be even better when you have a person whose main job is business analysis, or maybe more than one, right? Some enterprises have groups of business analysts, and as well as they probably have several project managers too, and maybe several scrum masters and a lot of developers. But anyway, yeah, a lot of times it's better to have somebody who can focus on that part of the work, right? And sometimes that overloads the project manager to have them be the business analyst as well, or the scrum master. So it can be handy to have a business analyst. And in fact, I want to say, and this I don't necessarily agree with, but at one point in time, I want to say I read some articles that said probably the only job that shouldn't be outsourced in an IT department is the business analyst. And I don't really agree with that, because the whole thing about business analysts is they can be consultants. They go ask questions. They learn what they need to, they can do document analysis and all that kind of stuff anyway. But they're very important, as are all these other positions that we just talked about. They're equally important. So, all right. So any other questions or comments you want to make or something like that?
Like questions or comments, unmute yourself and give us any comments.
Yeah.
Examples of how you do it in your organization, or questions for Kathy.
Yeah, I would love to hear. Yeah.
I'll make a comment. When I started with my company, I've been with over 30 years, but in the first 5 years I was there, the business analysts were pretty much just secretaries or administrative assistants that were promoted because they ran reports. They didn't actually do any analysis. They ran reports and handed them to an executive, and that was considered business analysis. Thankfully, we've got tools now that let us do real business analysis and make good decisions for the company.
Well, that's
That's
great.
good.
There's good progress then, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah, lots of progress. And you know, and the APIC system was a great proof of skill set that you could take in and prove to management what, you know, what the caliber of people you needed to in the organization to make those improvements, or you're going to continue to go by gut instinct. And I don't want to hear people tell me they make decisions based on gut instinct.
Yeah,
Right.
that's dangerous. So I know that in the CLTD and CSCP classes that I teach, we never really talk about business analysis, except that everything that we teach in those classes is precisely that, right? It's how to critically think about your operations and your opportunities and come up with that risk and reward concept that helps you determine what the right decision is. None of that is gut feel.
Right. And I, by the way, I have I wrote a business analysis horror story that I presented at one of our conferences that was all about a situation where somebody decided to ignore the data and go with their gut instinct and all the bad stuff that happened because of that. I mean, it was a true story. It was somebody that I had worked with at one point in time.
Anybody else have a comment or a question? I'm told you're supposed to wait 27 seconds before you interrupt so that somebody does have time to formulate a question or a comment. It seems like an awful long amount of no talk for me, but
Mhm.
well, if we don't have anything else, Kathy, I'm going to thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate your recovering in time to be able to
Yeah.
help us out and give us a presentation tonight. And we're going to just turn around and give everybody 15 minutes of their time back.
Okay.
including me. So
All
thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me. And yeah.
Have a great evening, everybody.
All right,
Thank you.
everybody have a
Bye.
great evening.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Bye.